فهمك ما كوجو أدق هاي وحلها مهدي هنقطة أما الديني هنقطة قف وفهمك كو أدق يعني متى مركب أنك وحبر شذا الإمادة عن دخس فهمين أو كر فاضي وحبر شذا لا تعالى متى هذا بدو عدن أضل وطلق الإله بوحبر شذا وحيا رفضت كعجري دعاء كدو عيسو مرة بالصلاة كتب دعاء كدو عيسو وقتي إن كانوا مرة دعاء تصوي هذه.
In a conflict between Israelis and Arabs and Muslims, rationality dissolves.
Fear takes over.
Yes.
For the next generation of Israelis, I have got to find a way to peace.
Absolutely.
Because an armed...
Otherwise, it's endless wars or tensions and the danger eventually of a Holocaust.
As tensions escalate once more between Israel and Iran, let's revisit the warnings and predictions made by the late Lee Kuan Yew and his critique of US foreign policy in the region. But first, let's explore Singapore's initially secretive relationship with Israel. The partnership between the two began shortly after Singapore gained independence from Malaysia in 1965. Alone and defenseless, Lee reached out to leaders in India, Egypt, and Israel, seeking assistance in building Singapore's armed forces. Initially reluctant to accept Israeli help, fearing it might provoke hostility from neighbouring Muslim-majority countries, Lee ultimately turned to Israel after being rejected by both India and Egypt. The first contingent of Israeli advisors, referred to as Mexicans to mask their true identity, arrived in November 1965 to provide military training. Under their guidance, Singapore rapidly developed its armed forces, adopting a conscription system modelled after the IDF.
Another critical decision I made within a year of independence was to build a national service armed force. If we did not have the ability to defend ourselves, nobody, not even our own people, would have faith in our future. So we studied the Swiss, the Swedes, and the Israelis. The Israelis offered help to build a system for a totally national service armed force. We now have a credible defense capability.
But during this time, Singapore would face persistent pressure from Israel to officially recognize it as a sovereign state and to establish an embassy in exchange for their military assistance. However, Lee stood firm against these demands, even if Israel threatened to withdraw support, stating that he did not want to alienate the Muslim populations in Singapore and Malaysia. But following Israel's decisive victory in the Six-Day War in 1967, Lee felt reassured that Singapore's military could effectively meet any challenges. This newfound confidence led Singapore to make significant military purchases, including 72 tanks from Israel in 1968 and establishing an Israeli embassy in 1969. Additionally, in a struggle to find ways to grow Singapore's economy, Lee will draw inspiration from Israel's development strategies and leapfrog the region by forging economic ties with the industrial countries.
A UNDP expert working in Singapore described to me how Israel had leapfrogged its neighbors who boycotted them, and exported to Europe and America fruits, flowers, many other things. I thought to myself, why not seek links with the developed countries, get industrial investments from Europe, Japan, and America.
Today, the two nations enjoy a close partnership spanning from healthcare to technology and defense. But despite the strong alliance, Singapore has consistently advocated for a two-state solution to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
We believe that the two sides have to live in peace. There's really no alternative to that. And to live in peace, the only way to get there is to have a two-state solution.
Lee himself would maintain a careful distance from appearing too close to Israel, visiting only once after the signing of the Oslo Peace Accords, as recorded by former Foreign Affairs Minister George Yeo in this speech.
I and many long-standing Singapore friends of Israel are troubled by some of these trends in Israeli society. Singapore has always supported a two-state solution in the UN. Lee Kuan Yew only agreed to visit Israel in 1994 after Israel had signed the Oslo Accord. It was his first and last visit to Israel.
More recently, a now-deleted Facebook post made by the Israeli embassy in Singapore prompted strong backlash from various ministers, reaffirming Singapore's commitment to maintaining religious harmony.
That post on the Israeli embassy social media page is completely unacceptable. This post is an astonishing attempt to rewrite history. The writer of the post should look at UN resolutions, see if Israel's actions in the past few decades have been consistent with international law before trying to rewrite history.
And earlier this year, Singapore voted in favor of a UN resolution supporting Palestinian membership, reaffirming its commitment to a two-state solution.
Singapore has just voted in favor of a resolution at the United Nations General Assembly that expresses support for the admission of Palestine as a UN member. The two-state solution is foundational to resolving this long-standing conflict.
But now let's delve into Lee Kuan Yew's stark warnings about the Middle East. In his final book, published in 2013, he characterized the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as the region's most pressing issue, emphasizing that its resolution is essential for achieving broader peace in the Middle East. However, he cautioned that with each passing day, the likelihood of a permanent solution diminishes. He pointed to the powerful influence of the pro-Israel lobby in the US, which has enabled hardline positions to dominate Israeli leadership. Lee also emphasized that the illegal expansion of Israeli settlements, viewed by ultra-conservatives as a divine right, further undermines any potential peace agreement. Lee would also criticize US foreign policy, asserting that America is the only power that can pressure Israel. He argued that unless they cut off military and financial aid, which has amounted to over $300 billion since 1949, Israel has little incentive to change its course.
They believe that only the United States can play the kind of role that will, with Israel, that will bring about a solution.
Yes.
And that the United States has to take the lead and exert some real leadership and make sure that there's progress towards that.
Yeah.
And the United States, finally, is not doing it.
Yes.
This ongoing conflict not only undermines America's credibility, but also fuels anti-American sentiment worldwide, making it easier for jihadists to recruit young people and to spread terrorism.
Why have they done this? They say it's because Americans have supported the Israelis who have been cruel and oppressive to the Palestinians. They say the Russians have killed the Chechens. They say the Serbs killed the Muslims in Bosnia. They don't consider all these separate incidents to be disparate events connected with each country. It's every act of cruelty, every atrocity, every massacre of any Muslim anywhere in the world is a crime to all Muslims anywhere in the world. So let us all join together and hit out at those who hit us. And who is the ringleader? America.
Lee would state that if the US can adopt a more neutral stance and genuinely pursue a two-state solution, it will solve many other problems and improve America's standing and policies in the region. However, Lee expressed concerns about Iran, viewing it as a significant obstacle to any peace deal. He believes that Iran harbors ambitions to dominate the region, driven by the Sunni-Shiite divide that dates back millennia, but also a deep-seated pride in its Persian imperial past, where it once held considerable power and influence.
Last night I had the foreign minister of Iran here
Yes.
for a long conversation.
Yeah.
Says that they're ready to be engaged about the bomb, that they don't really want the bomb. Yeah, you don't believe that, do you?
It'd be impolite for me to express my disbelief, but I think anybody who says he doesn't want a bomb, if he can get one, isn't really being honest.
Because
Because the Pakistanis have the bomb, so why not they? The Israelis have a bomb, why not they? No, it's a dangerous world, that's that.
He believes that Israel will not be able to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon unless the Americans decide to launch a ground invasion, which Lee believed was close to impossible given how they handled Iraq. And even if Israel opted for a preemptive strike against Iran's nuclear facilities, Lee argued that Iran would likely find ways to continue its development deeper underground, beyond the reach of Israeli strikes. This scenario will trigger a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, and increase the chance of a serious miscalculation that could lead to the first use of nuclear weapons since World War II.
what do you think the likelihood is that a bomb will fall in the wrong hands and it'll be set off?
I once wrote a fantasy piece for The Economist, 50 years from now. So I had one little paragraph in which I said, and finally the bomb was used, and it was in the Middle East. Because in a conflict between Israelis and Arabs and Muslims, rationality dissolves.
And fear takes over.
Yes. But they didn't publish that. They decided it was too provocative. They canceled it. But I still believe that's the highest risk.
Ultimately, Lee believed that resolving these critical issues hinged on the influence of what he called the 2,000 Jews in America. But in the end, he concedes that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict today is an unsolvable problem.
marka aad weysaysatid kadib haddaad akhrisid ducadan maalinta qiyaamo waxaa lagu furayaa 8 albaabood ee jannada midka aad rabtid ayaad ka gelaysaa nebiga sallallahu alayhi wasallam ku salli ayaa inoo tilmaamay ducadaasoo ah waa duco aad u fudud marka aad weysaysatid kadib waxaad akhrisaa aad dhahdaa ashhadu an laa ilaaha ila allah وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله دعاء فضط waxaad ku helaysaa ajarkaas weyninka badan oo ah 8 albaabood jannada in lagu furo midka aad rabtidna in aad ka geshid sii faafi asxaabtaadana si ay ugu faa'iidaystaan